Good evening, members. Welcome to Sandwich Town Council Extraordinary Meeting of the Council, 28th of July 2025. So agenda item 1 is Chair's opening remarks, and I've just got 2 remarks that I'd like to cover. So firstly, I just want to give an update on the recruitment process for the Town Clerk and the Finance Officer. So the closing date for applications was Friday the 18th of July. Interviews of candidates for the role of a Town Clerk will be undertaken on Wednesday the 6th of August. The HR Committee will then meet the following evening to review the outcome of those interviews. And the point of that is to flag up we will have a need to convene an extraordinary meeting of the full Town Council before we notify the candidates of the results. That's something we previously signed up to as a council, so we should keep to that. So that means it's very likely we will be calling a short, and I guarantee a short, STC on the 14th of August. So you can pencil that in your diaries. There are some assumptions there that obviously the people invited aren't on holiday, and that they turn up, or councillors who've got enough available. But by keeping the pace, and the key thing is to keep the pace around this, is if we do that, we can ensure that we have a period of handover between the existing Town Clerk and the successful candidate, if there is one, for the Town Clerk's role. So the second thing I wanted to mention was the STC magazine. The 2nd edition came out recently, and I just really wanted to flag up that there has been quite an amount of positive feedback received around the publication from several residents. But I suppose more importantly is encouraging to see that people are coming forward willing to volunteer for some of the items that we've put in there. So for example, Fishergate, there was an article on refurbishment of Fishergate and the project that we want to do around that, and there have been 9 people who have put their hands up, and hopefully they'll follow through when we get to the stage of actually wanting to do some work there. We've received 2 inquiries about allotments. Again, that was another item that was in the magazine, and we've had 1 inquiry about the speed watch scheme. I just wanted to again recognise that all of the work on the magazine is very much down to Lindsay. She's the key person responsible for pulling together all the articles, and as I say, very positive feedback I'm certainly receiving around the communication itself. Thank you very much. We can move on to agenda item 2. Town Clerk, have we any apologies for absences received?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. So Councillor Martin Pennington has a travel commitment, and Councillor Dean Regan to advise he will be late.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 3. Sorry.
I've received another apologies. Councillor Black tried to contact the office to say he's either going to be late or he won't get here at all.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, he did send me a message on my phone, but it does voice recording of the message and prints it out, and it's the worst, most ineligible message I've ever received. So it's about spot the dog, apparently, on the message. I don't know quite what he was trying to say. Moving on to agenda item 3, declarations of interest. This is to receive any declarations of disposable pecuniary interest from members in respect of business to be transacted on the agenda this evening. Do we have any? No? Thank you very much. Okay, agenda item 4. Minutes of the full council meeting committees for us to review and approve. So the first one, attachment 1. We've been asked to approve the minutes of the ordinary meeting of STC held on the 23rd of June 2025, and to consider any matters arising from those minutes not covered elsewhere in the agenda. And that's attachment 1. Councillor Carter, P.
I'm quite happy to approve those minutes.
Okay. Somebody happy to second them? Councillor Franklin, we'll take a vote. And that's in favour. Thank you very much. Second, to receive the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting held on the 9th of June 2025, and that's attachment 2. Any comments from anybody? No? Somebody happy to propose?
Happy to propose the minutes.
And one
One
abstention.
abstention, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. To receive the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee meeting held on the 18th of June 2025.
Happy to propose.
Thank you.
One
to
second. Sorry, who's that from there? Is it Councillor Carter?
And the vote?
1, 2,
3
3.
4
Four
3.
abstentions.
3. Oh.
5.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right, attachment 4, to receive minutes of the Human Resources Committee meeting held on the 13th of June and 24th of June 2025. So that's, looks like attachments 4 and 5 to me. Just a quick check.
Yeah.
Yes, it is 4 and 5. Any
I'm
comments?
happy to propose as I was at both meetings.
And I'm happy to second. And the vote?
1, 2, 3, 4. 1 abstention, thank you.
Okay, finally, to receive the minutes of the Heritage and Townscape Committee meeting held on the 21st of May 2025, and that's attachment 6 in your pack. Councillor Morehouse is proposing, and Councillor Mallet is seconding. And the vote.
1, 2, 3, 4. 5 abstentions, thank you.
Thank you. Move on to agenda item 5, payment schedules. First of all, we've been asked to receive and note the payments for the end of June and those that missed the mid-June 20.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, that's July. It
Oh,
should
is
say
it?
July, yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll rerun that again. Hopefully nobody heard me the first time. To receive and note the payments for the end of June.
July.
Oh, end of July.
Yeah, yeah. And those that missed.
Three times. Let's do it all again. To receive and note the payments for the end of July and those that missed the mid-July 2025 payment schedule. These payments, which are not supported by a minute reference, have been authorised by officers with delegated powers of expenditure. Any comments on those?
No.
To note from Councillor Franklin, Councillor Green seconding. I think.
No, I'm not
Those
going to
votes,
make any
vote
comments.
first. Yes, please.
I may, because I'm just trying to pull the payment schedule up when I looked at it earlier. And one of the payments was a payment to the investment manager for the Georgina Maddox Fund for just over £540,000. And that's going to be discussed in the Maddox paper later on this evening, where the suggestion there is to round it down to £540,000 exactly. But on reflection, I think it would be better, given that we've been given kind of the green light to make interim fund awards, to round it down further to £500,000. So that would give us an extra £40,000 along with the £40,000 we currently are holding in respect of Maddox to be able to fund interim grant awards. So I think just the approval of that payment should be deferred until we've had that debate later on. That expenditure.
Okay, so we'll debate the proposal and that item, and then we can move that back. So, as we've been asked to receive a note, Councillor Franklin has done that with the one caveat that we've now got. Somebody seconding. Councillor Green, vote on that.
2
Two
abstentions.
abstentions.
Thank you.
Okay. Council to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise end of July payment schedules on bank line. I am 100% now set up, so I'm happy to put my name forward this time. Is anybody else happy to? Councillor Franklin. Thank you very much. Do we vote on that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Agreed, yeah.
And similarly, Council to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise mid-August and end of August payment schedules on bank line. I'm happy to do that as well. And Councillor Franklin, happy to vote on that. finally, council to confirm nomination of 2 signatories to authorise mid-September payment schedule on Bank High. Are you happy to put your name, Councillor Miles?
Yeah.
And Councillor Quay?
Yeah.
Vote on that. You're up.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6, public participation. 20-minute session is available for members of the public to make representations at the meeting in respect of the business on the agenda and other matters if time permits. Do we have any speakers?
Yes, we have one request, Trustee Higgins. Thank you.
I think you know where to go.
Good evening. I am addressing you tonight both in relation to the agenda for this meeting and to previous minutes and agendas. I am concerned that a number of actions have been kicked down the road with partial oversight, and that the longer this continues, the more difficult it will be for STC to exercise good governance and for officers to catch up, especially in view of staff changes. Whilst I am aware some councillors will know of some lapsed actions, I am concerned for visibility at full council level, transparency to the public and staff ability and capacity to catch up. Standing Order 439 states, minutes shall include an action list which shall be tracked under matters arising at the following meeting. However, minutes rarely include an action list. Both F&GP and H&T minutes presented this evening reference action logs, but updated logs are not presented to full council with the minutes. And I cannot remember when I last saw an action log attached to full council minutes, despite several lapsed actions causing concern, as follows. Firstly, at the annual meeting of the council in May, the review of a number of policies and procedures was deferred to June 25 per reference ATCM 05-2518, namely Standing Order 424P, the complaints procedure, Standing Order 424Q, policies, procedures and practices in respect of the council's obligations under freedom of information and data protection legislation, Standing Order 424R, policy for dealing with the press and media, Standing Order 424S, employment policies and procedures. However, despite there being 2 full council meetings in June, the above items were not included on the agendas and have not been listed on an outstanding actions list for tonight's meeting. They have dropped out of sight altogether, and we have no idea when these reviews will now take place. Secondly, I addressed F&GP in June concerning financial reports that were missing from the agenda, namely the bank reconciliation, cash book and budget variance report to the end of May. My speech is noted in the minutes, and the chair of F&GP referenced the missing reports verbally at the start of the July F&GP meeting, saying there is a systems issue and that officers hope to be able to produce the missing reports in September. The same reports are missing from full council agendas and minutes, yet they have not been included on an action list in line with SO 439 for either F&GP or full council. The review of these reports is an important internal control, yet the last reports to be reviewed by F&GP and full council were to the end of April, and it is now 3 months later, at the end of July. Thirdly, the FOI publication scheme on the STC website remains incomplete as at today's date. STC had a publication scheme that met FOI requirements prior to migrating to the new website. Sadly, this was lost early 2024, which was acknowledged at the annual meeting of the council in May 24, and an action recorded, reference ATCM 05-2418, to address the issue on May 20th, whereupon STC agreed a proposal, reference STC 05-2413, that was minuted as follows. To adopt the publication scheme for STC and for the town clerk to ensure all the relevant information was uploaded to the website promptly, including URLs to the ICO website. The proposal put to STC has been published to the website. However, this is not of itself a publication scheme. Important information stipulated by the ICO for council publication schemes remains missing, in addition to some information listed in the proposal itself, and yet progress towards meeting STC's statutory obligations in this regard has not been and is not being monitored by an action log attached to the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Christina, are you happy to either leave
Oh,
that or
yes,
email
sorry,
it?
I've got loads of copies.
I'd be disappointed if you haven't.
Well, sometimes I haven't, but if you pass one to the town
Okay,
clerk,
so what I will
we've got
do
some we can
is
share around.
I will review this with the town clerk and primarily the F&GP chair, and we'll look at what we need to do over the
Yes.
I'm sure those will
I'm happy to
walk
make a
along.
comment
I
on
took
yes,
20
please.
copies, so there's plenty.
In relation to
This one's
the
mine.
the actions on the Finance and General Purposes Committee, councillors will remember that at the last Sandwich Town Council meeting I was appointed as the council auditor, and I have met again since the last F&GP meeting with the RFO, and I have got the bank reconciliation statement and the resets and payment cash book for May. What's basically happened by way of explanation, in the urgency to get the accounts for Sandwich Town Council published before she left, the last RFO focused on that, which was the right thing to do. But in doing so, completing the accounts for the Tollbridge Fund has suffered. And as such, because all of the payments, the way the system works, the reconciliation statements feed the bank account, and the bank account feeds the accounts and the various things. So there is some catching up that needs to be done. Looking at it, I don't see any payments that are kind of alarming or anything on the bank reconciliation statement that I've seen for May. The RFO has told me that at the beginning of next month he will close July, and therefore will be able to publish the bank reconciliation statements and so forth for June for Sandwich Town Council. But until such time as he's caught up and prepared the accounts for Sandwich Tollbridge Fund and closed those accounts, the actual variance statements and the variance forecasts and those reports won't be available, but we're hoping to have those in place by September the 1st.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Okay, move on to agenda item 7, local government reorganisation, transfer of assets. This is a report I've prepared for members this evening. Just a quick, I'm not going to go through what is a very detailed report, and I hope all members have read, consumed and come to a view on this, but we've previously discussed the transfer of assets from DDC to STC. And this report that I presented to you this evening provides a background to this, the action taken so far, and it offers an assessment of what assets we might want to seek a discussion with DDC on regarding STC taking ownership of. The assessment that's in front of you was discussed at F&GP committee at 2 separate meetings, and members are now being asked to consider this assessment, so we may have a baseline to take to DDC. We have a meeting arranged for the 31st of July, which will involve myself, Councillor Green as chair of F&GP, the town clerk and the property manager. And that is a meeting with Kevin Mills as leader of DDC, and also we've asked for relevant officer or officers involved in terms of the discussion. But in agreeing the list that's in front of you, and we can open up the conversation in a minute regards what's been highlighted, I just want to run through a few, and this is really key for me. There are a number of considerations that we all need to be really aware of in terms of how we move this forward. So if you move to the final page, bar 1, the penultimate page, those considerations are listed, but I do want to repeat them. So, Sandwich Town Council will need to provision budget for professional advice on the terms of transfer, the legal transfer of ownership itself, possible costs relating to structural maintenance surveys, environmental health checks, insurance and future maintenance costs, and whatever else I haven't thought of. So what I'm trying to say is, even starting from a base camp point, there will be costs in any assets we might deem we want to take over if DDC are willing to let us do so. We also need to be really aware that the Town Council needs to have the legal power to manage the assets. Or if it does not, what legal structure will enable us to manage it? So within the report, I've made reference to owning and operating a car park. So if we put rules as it stands in terms of the powers we've got as a parish council, those rules can be broken by anybody parking the car park, and we won't be able to enforce them. So we may well need a legal framework that we will have to pay for and oversee and obviously manage. We also need to make sure that any assets that we look to have transferred to us is subject to covenants or overages applied by DDC or previous owners of those assets. There may, and again, it's another investigation that will need to be undertaken, because what we can't do is blindly accept an asset without making sure those checks are undertaken. And then the final two things, which is the outward looking piece. If we take any assets on, there will be a cost. We need to appreciate this may well lead to an increase in the preset to fund the future cost of ownership for any assets transferred. Within the report, it provides some examples of increases in preset. So we can't blindly accept an asset without impacting the potential future costs of those. And then finally, if we do come to a point where DDC are happy to discuss any assets being transferred, and that's a big question in itself, we should, I would recommend, engage with the community if we're going to take any of those assets over. We shouldn't necessarily, just as a group of councillors, make those decisions without, in some shape or form, consulting with our community. So I just wanted to make those clear. This isn't an easy task, and I've said before in FNGP, and I think I've said it here as well, any assets, DDC have a right to say no. They also have a right to say, yes, but you will have to pay to buy it. There is a transfer cost involved. So it's not a simple journey from where we are here today to where we want to go. So, with all those health warnings, I'm happy to open up the discussion. We went through a prioritisation led by Councillor Green. They're reflected here, but I know there's one question mark certainly from Councillor Gray regards one that we didn't score. So maybe Councillor Gray, do you want to start off first?
Yes, I'm confused with this list because the Quay appears to appear twice. Once a Sandwich Quay with no X's against it, and further down it mentions Sandwich Quay with Sandwich Town Council, which presumably refers to the Quay toilets. Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I would say that certainly I think that the Quay itself should be on the list on the priority interest list. I think it's very important that it is. There's no commitment made at the moment, of course, but I think it's something the Town Council be investigating. And I think the Quay should include the Quay Green as well.
So you're clarifying the scope of the extent, so it's the Quay as we would understand where the medieval centre is, but then to include the green as well. So that's a proposal you're putting forward.
I've also spoken to the Medieval Trust and to the Port and Haven Commission, and both bodies agree with me that we should pursue the possibility of the Quay being transferred to the council. So I would like to see the Quay added on that list
as a priority
interest.
Councillor Morehouse.
Could I just ask if the Lord's play area would be treated as a separate entity?
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, it is actually
It is
as a
mentioned,
separate area.
It is mentioned separately.
Yeah, and I've, in the Councillor Green can correct me, but I think we made a decision within the FMGP that we didn't want to pursue the play parks as a priority item.
Yeah, but we did express secondary interest.
Yeah. So it is separate, is the answer to the question you asked. Councillor Wiles, did you have?
I mean, I agree with Councillor Gray. The key is integral to the town. Its identity, tourism, everything else. It's an empty space at the moment, more or less. And yet everyone has a vision of, tennis barges and such like. Heritage ships being there. But the key is a major engineering structure. So we would need to be clear about what the both the income and the potential liabilities might be in the future. And there's already been discussion recently about weeds and so on growing from the masonry. What's the long-term financial obligation?
Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry I was late. I was working, so I have been listening to it on live on YouTube, so it's fine. I've caught up kind of. Just to be clear, we had obviously the SGMP meeting regarding the assets. Just have to council has to be wary of the costings as well with all the ones that I agree with Councillor Gray with the Quay Green, but if we take the Boardwalk play park, then we'll have to take all three play parks, so we have to look into that as well.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. You took a good income from that. I mean, it's 50 years ago, Dover District Council was formed. It's 30 years ago. 30 years, Harwich actually had all the income. It's only 20 years ago, Dover got greedy and they said they wanted the income. They spent all that money on that report, didn't they? It was over £30,000, which we didn't really get the report, it was all suddenly quiet.
Yeah.
So I think that's all gone by the by now, they're not going to spend that £100,000, put more facilities in. But I think the stonework's pretty good. And what them pontoons, I think that's going soon, isn't it? That big pontoon. But I think it's only little tidying up, like pointing and those weeds. The Port Haven, clear that, but the Byron Marine. So it's only mine, they just want spraying it and a little bit of pointing.
Thank you. We'll come back to that because I've got a proposal and probably a seconder on that being added in as a priority. We'll come back to that. Any other comments on the report itself?
Oh, yes, no, I was going to say, I think Dover District Council, anything about car parks, I think they're interested in keeping the car parks, aren't they? Because there's income. Does that mean they're going to keep the Barbican? There's income there because it's part of the Housing Association. But there's 2 apartments at the Barbican, isn't there?
It's not on the list.
Not on the list.
No, it's not on the list. But I'd say they might probably keep them anyway. It's just wondering what they're going to keep. You think they're going to let's have the Guildhall because it's going to cost a lot of money. They're going to get the Barbican. Because that's what income coming as well.
So the very clear view that's been expressed across a number of district councils is that revenue generating assets, which includes car parks, are not something that will be easily let go. Yesterday I met with the chair of Birchington Council in a gathering, and they're very much looking to take on a car park, but similarly in Thanet District Council, their view is that no revenue generated such car parks will be passed down to parish councils.
Just quickly, obviously the three council car parks are run by DBC, however we own the back car park with Guildhall.
We do.
So we need to double check that because I do know the lease is up next January. So we need to discuss whether we're going to take ownership of that or we're going to speak to DBC, but obviously this is probably going to be on the back burner because of the asset.
Yeah. Thank you. So, good evening.
My apologies.
No, don't worry. We did get a message of some.
Yes.
Councillor Green.
Sorry, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've obviously got a list from DDC and from the comments about the Barbican, it's obviously not necessarily correct, so maybe we should be a bit more forthright in publishing that to all councillors so that people can actually see what's on the table. We've only got a list from DDC. What about the assets that are owned by KCC in the town? I'm thinking about the library and the schools and everything. And I'd just like to re-emphasise what you were saying because I'm concerned with this, that DDC are going to come, if we express interest in car parks or play areas or whatever the asset, they're going to come with a truckload of data and information that's going to be really difficult for us to analyse, and then we've got to prepare a business case, and we don't necessarily have the resources, and we need to think about the legal support that we might need and other financial expertise that we might need to draft those, and surveying to actually to go out and do condition surveys of the assets. So there is an awful lot, but for me, there's a lot of things that are kind of flexible and negotiable. Why can't we have the assets and lease them back to them, just like the car park? Why can't we get legal entitlement to the assets, but let them operate it? You know, that's a negotiating position. We're not like most councils, because there is some resources behind Sandwich Town Council emanating out of the toll bridge. You know, there is an option to do more things with there. And obviously the sensitivity about the precept, because you've talked about increasing the precept, but surely within their calculations they must be able to show the impact on the council tax of the various assets. So we should be able to get more information. So yes, we're supposed to meet with them, and I think it's important that we feed back to the council as a full. Maybe some of that needs to be done in a confidential environment if we're actually discussing things.
Thank you. So I think the first step is that meeting on the 31st, and you're involved in that meeting, Councillor Breen, which is helpful. You're coming along to that. As it stands at the moment, I think we have a priority list that we want to discuss. We need to see what the initial response is, whether it is a truckload of information they're going to give us, or whether it's something else. It might be a set of questions they want us to prepare. We don't know that yet, but there's a proposal from Councillor Gray to have the key included in the priority and seconded by Councillor Franklin. If we're happy to move on from that and vote on that basis, that we accept the report as it is, empower those names that I've made in terms of meeting with DDC on the 31st of August with the caveat of the key being shown as a priority item, then we can move on from this item. Is anybody happy to propose that on that basis? Councillor Millhouse and Councillor Franklin, and that's with the caveat of including the key as a priority item. Is it going to change anybody's views? So we could vote on that.
I'm going to abstain if the vote is to empower me. I don't think I should be voting to empower myself.
Yeah. Thank you very much. As we've had two late arrivals, I know you both were arriving late. Could I just check on tonight's agenda, are there any pecuniary interests that you need to declare on the agenda?
No.
Okay, moving on to agenda item 8, Georgina Maddox Fund updates and recommendations from the Maddox Charity Management Committee. This is to appraise members on the latest advice received from consultants on establishing the Maddox Charity Incorporated Organisation, the ability of the council to award interim grants while the charity arrangements are being finalised, and the key points from the first meeting the Maddox Charity Management Committee held on the 30th of June. And we will have some decisions that we need to consider towards the end of this report. Can I just check who's talking to this report? Is it Councillor Breen?
No, I'm happy to talk to this report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First up, I'd like to remind everybody that on the 15th of August it will be Georgina's 4th anniversary. And I think we should, as a council, given that her legacy is worth over £3.1 million, make sure that, you know, we provide a bunch of flowers to her headstone and go down there. So that is on the 15th of August, and I think that's something that the council should do this year and every year in respect of her kind of legacy. The second thing I'd like to say is that this meeting was already originally scheduled to be a meeting of of the town council as the trustee of Maddox. So I think we just need to respect that and take some time on the matters that we want to discuss here tonight. So you will remember the background, just going through the background, we appointed Levix in October 2024. They made a submission to the Charity Commission for us with our approval in early 25. That was rejected by the Charity Commission. They've taken their time, they've dragged their heels. People feel a little bit disappointed with their performance, and now they're proposing some revised wordings, which we will get to. So we've got Levix, and because of our concerns about Levix, we instructed the town clerk as a council to approach Girling's solicitors. Levix are accountants, Girling's are solicitors who have a specialist partner who deals with charities. So we've got a report from her that we'll be going through later on. The third thing is that we also suggested to the town clerk it would be an idea to approach the Charity Aid Foundation for help with drafting the CIO, the Charity Incorporation document. But the Charities Aid Foundation said they didn't do that type of work, but posted us towards a company called Locality. And Locality are a not-for-profit organisation with about 50 people. Their top earners are 70,000, so you know it's very much a do-good organisation. And when we had an exploratory conversation with them, they first up asked, why don't you put the monies with Kent Community Foundation, let them manage everything for you. And so we asked them to prepare a report on the benefits of proceeding with the charity or going with Kent Foundation. So we'll be talking about that. Okay, so that's the background to what we want to discuss. So first up is Levix. And as I say, Levix have amended the object clause on the basis that the charity would only give out to other charities, which is a bit restrictive because a lot of the organisations that do good within Sandwich are not kind of registered charities. But it would put a lot of kind of emphasis on us. So they've proposed some revised wordings, and they've recommended that the registration process would be assisted if we provided a grant-giving policy. And finally, they said that it would be good when we apply again if we can define what we mean by the area of Sandwich. So those are the kind of the key points from Levix. Before we move on to the Girling's stuff, has anybody got any questions about Levix?
Just one question about Levix. And if we're unhappy with their advice and they're giving further advice which is building on their previous advice which was failing, then is this advice valid? I mean, should we listen to them?
Well, that's a good point, but when we come to the advice from Girling's, the solicitors, they say that it's likely to fail, and they set out 4 reasons. They say in section 3D of their report that it's our opinion that the new suggested wording remains unlikely to be acceptable to the Charity Commission for 4 reasons. And they've set out those 4 reasons. Firstly, they say that the wording generally remains unclear. The change to it being grant making does not make the objects charitable. It would be wise to retain the ability of the charity to act as a charity, an operational charity, not just one that's giving out to other charities. and it's saying that whilst the grant making policy that Levick's provided, the trustee body needs to assess whether the application meets clearer objects or wording would assist with this. So what they're saying, what the solicitor is saying is it's unlikely to pass. And that really summarises what our friends Girlings are saying. So we sent some questions to Kent Community Foundation, and we asked them various questions as to what they do, and basically they've got about £30 million in invested. They take out 5% every year and they distribute it out according to the various funds that they've got. So they could set up a separate fund for Georgina Maddox, and they would effectively, it's just like outsourcing the operation of the charity to Kent County Community Foundation. They would look after all of the grant applications, the grant evaluations, all of the paperwork to do with the regulatory and the administration of the body. They would look after all of the investment. But for that, they charge 1.5%, or capped at £15,000 of the fund that you initially put in, and they charge 1.5% a year. So they would draw out, if we've got £3 million in this fund, they take out endowments of 5% or 150,000 a year. They then would want £45,000 a year to run and administer the fund, and 105,000 a year would be available for grant giving. The other thing is that once we actually, if we were to transfer the monies to Kent Community Foundation, it's an irrevocable gift. So if we had an emergency and we needed to withdraw out monies to, say, potentially buy a car park or whatever, we wouldn't be able to do it. They assume control of the money. Councillor.
Yes, I don't know whether now is the moment to talk to my colleagues as a recipient of Kent Community Foundation grant, two in fact, as a trustee of the Jubilee Centre, or whether you want to continue to summarise the various options.
Always happy to take a break.
Okay, well, I would like to talk about the Kent Community Foundation, and this is my experience as a trustee of the Jubilee Centre. As a trustee of the Jubilee Centre, I should say that the Jubilee Centre is currently in receipt of 2 Kent Community Foundation grants. One through Royal St George's, who have committed their grant funding monies to the Kent Community Foundation, who administer their charitable funding. And the other grant is a grant for which I applied, which comes out of the general Kent Community Foundation pot. And at the moment there's a maximum of £5,000, and we managed to get £5,000 for core costs for the Jubilee Centre. And it's very difficult actually to find grant givers who do fund core costs, and that is one of the great advantages of the Kent Community Foundation. As an applicant, I've been extremely impressed by the Kent Community Foundation. I've also been to funding conferences run by an organisation which Kent Community Foundation fund, called Funding for All, at which Kent Community Foundation has made presentations, and they've been extremely useful. in order to get a Kent Community Foundation grant, they have a procedure which involves interviews and meetings with applicants. And I was very impressed when they came to visit the Jubilee Centre to talk to myself and other Jubilee Centre trustees. I felt they listened to what we wanted to do. They were very sympathetic to our mission. I was pleased with the helpful advice that we were given as far as the application process was concerned. I should add that I've since met a number of recipients of other Kent Community Foundation grants. For example, I was talking over the weekend, it so happens, with the person who runs the Eastern Youth Club, and she said to me quite spontaneously, of course we get Kent Community Foundation grants, and that's wonderful. And I said, yes, I agree. Because other recipients are impressed by their procedures and processes. I should add also that it seems to me that we need to avoid a politicised process. And as a council, that is, I think, inevitable, that if we run these processes and getting grants and so on, and I use the term political with a little p, I'm talking about power and influence. We're in a small town. I think the further that kind of decision making about those important sums of money, which are for many organisations in Sandwich existential, they wouldn't exist without these grants. So the pressure will be enormous on the council. So I would be very keen to have an unpoliticised, with a small p, process, and I think the Kent Community Foundation offers that. And when Councillor Green outlined the costs, the actual monetary costs of working with the Kent Community Foundation, I did hear some comments behind me saying, oh, that's far too much. But we have already, as a council, considered the possibility of actually having to employ somebody who would administer the grant, the fund. And I feel that the equivalent experience in this council to run a large fund like this, compared to the experience that there exists within the Kent Community Foundation, frankly, there's no competition. They are experienced over many years. They have trustees who are also I have confidence in them. So I do think that we have to take account of, if we try and run it, it may cost £45,000 in total, or something similar to it, to employ an administrator of the fund. I think we will have trouble trying to be unpolitical with a little p, and we don't have the experience to do it. And so I would very strongly recommend that we consider the Kent Community Foundation as an extremely serious contender. And I would also add, in relation to what Councillor Green just said about how we would be committing this fund forever, that we don't actually have to put all the money into the Kent Community Fund, into the pot that Kent Community Foundation manages. We could presumably retain a little if we want to retain some discretion.
Thank you. Right,
Yeah.
so Councillor Franklin.
Yeah, thank you. I'm totally against it. I mean, Georgina was a local woman. She gave the money to the town council to look after, not someone up in Maidstone or somewhere in North Kent. What they know about our little local charities and the little things that we want to do. It should be a local committee. You're not talking about the amount of money on the interest every year. You're talking about hiring an auditor, you're hiring most probably a part-time secretary, a bit like the Port and Haven do, and then you have a volunteer committee. Where's the cost? There's hardly any cost. And it'll be local, and I think we should just keep it local in Sandwich.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with Councillor Franklin. We had a discussion at the charity committee meeting that we were going to seek to possibly employ an administrator ourselves. It's run within the charity, so they run it, so we keep it in-house. I mean, Sandwich Town Council has run the Tollbridge Fund. We are the trustee of the Tollbridge Fund. We've run that for over 40 years. So, and regarding the political side of things, what Councillor Anderson said, I totally disagree with that, because I myself, Councillor Mallet and Councillor Morehouse, we run events in the town. We always keep them apolitical, and I do feel as a trustee for that we will be trustees for the Maddox Fund. We can be that sense. We can run it in house.
Can I just check that 45,000? That's the 1.5%
Of the fund,
of the fund.
of the investment fund.
But of course, it won't stay at 45,000. It'll be dependent on the size of the fund. As the fund increases, well, therefore increase.
Yeah.
But does anyone be able to do a costing, even a rough costing, as to what it would cost to run it ourselves compared to them? Now, there are advantages in them in the sense, and as we've heard before from Councillor Anderson, that they're professionals at the thing. But we've heard the other side is that they're a little bit remote, or potentially could be remote, although this may or may not be the case. My concern is that the 45k, unless if that is significantly more than what it would cost to run it ourselves, then it's a non-starter. But have we been able to do any realistic costs about this? And that is the concern that I have. Otherwise, I think this is a very good system. If they're experienced and they've got a lot of expertise and can use the benefits of other charities, then it should be followed.
Thank you for those comments, and just to respond to some of the points, I think I should make clear that while they would manage all of this, they are quite happy for the ultimate decisions in grant giving to rest with the council. They're also very happy to get to know Sandwich and to have this fund only for Sandwich, and to meet on an annual basis with all of the organisations of Sandwich. So it would be ring-fenced to Sandwich. In terms of what they're proposing, this is their initial starting position. We could try and negotiate from it. We could put less money into the pot. We could say it's a big fund at 1.5 or 3 million, giving 150,000 a year. Can you reduce it to 1%? And yes, when we actually look at the running costs, because we are all volunteers, but other local sandwich organised charities employ a clerk, and the clerk is part-time. Yeah, and that costs about 12,000 a year. In the accounts, it's 12,000 a year. Councillor Franklin, I can show you. And then by the time you employ solicitors and auditors and pay bank charges and all of those things. So yes, it would be worthwhile actually doing a more detailed comparison. But I think before we get to the ultimate decision, we should do some more negotiation with Kent Community Foundation, just to bring back a much firmer proposal. I think there are great advantages of having it outsourced. This council, we found, struggled with the capacity for the officers and the capacity for the councillors to process and go through, the numerous applications that will come in because of the size of the fund. So I think there are benefits, and I also think that all of us as councillors sitting around the table, we're all part of sandwich organisations. We're all potentially part of kind of beneficiaries. And whilst there's a lot of trust amongst the councillors here, let's project 20 years forward when we're not the council and there's another council. Well, wouldn't it be good to have an external fund managed in perpetuity in Georgina's name? So there are these advantages, and I'm kind of conscious of them all, and there's a lot of merit and strength I feel to using Kent Community Foundation, and I think if they can reduce their costs and we can compare it, it might be a more attractive proposition.
Okay, so
sorry. Any comments on that?
We've debated the KCF quite substantially. Are there any other points in the report we want to?
Yeah, but, yes, sorry. So I'm going through the report now, and we come to the report from Locality, who were the organisation who put us in touch with Kent Community Foundation. And these were, we found, a very switched on organisation who offer a lot of good services. They only work with local authorities and town councils, and they're a not-for-profit organisation. And they basically said, we said to them, write us what's the pros and what's the cons of kind of going. So they're kind of saying, is the grant programme short-term or pilot stage? Do you need to move quickly and simply? Do you have limited staff or experience in grant making? Is your long-term goal to grow a philanthropic institution or brand? Are you planning to raise external funding? Do you need to have full control over decisions, governance and messaging? And what they're really saying in summary is that if there's a large initial endowment with a clear long-term vision and the capacity to manage an organisation, then establishing a new charitable entity may be justified. So that's where they're going with it. So there are pros and cons, and I think, you know, this is a substantial amount. It would amount to about 10% of Kent Community's current funds. So, you know, I think it's a balancing act, and that's what we as councillors need to think. But before we come to the decisions, two other things. Both Girlings, the solicitors, and Kent Community Foundation have confirmed that we can make interim grants from the fund, provided we go through a transparent process in line with Georgina's wishes. And we've got a proper application form that's checking who the monies are going to, and that it's being used for the right purposes. So we are in a position to move forward with that, and that is why I was suggesting that we might want to put aside some further money. In terms of the management committee meeting that we had on the 30th of June, we've agreed at terms of reference, and those have been kind of drafted and will go back to the next management committee for approval before they come to this council. There was a grant making policy again. This grant making policy has been initially started by our friends Levick's, but we decided it needed moving forward a bit more, so we've got a grant making policy. In terms of the co-optees, Margaret Thomas, I'm pleased to see you here in the room, because Margaret, who is a friend of Georgina's, was on the working group previously, and she was voted on to the management committee. And it was debated whether we should have a financial advisor, but it became apparent in our discussions with Locality that they could provide a very good service to us if we wanted. They could help with designing the grant application process and the grant policy and so forth if we were interested. And they work on a fee of £600 a day, which compared with a solicitor is really good. And then we also discussed the need that if we do establish a charity, we would need to employ a clerk or an administrator for that charity to do and process all of the day-to-day paperwork. The next meeting for the management committee is scheduled for September. So that's kind of an update on the report. So what we're asking you councillors this evening, please, to make a few decisions. The first one, do we continue to employ Levick's? The second one, do we employ Girlings to prepare the document? And if we do, they've suggested the wording on animal welfare and religious harmony and community development were kind of areas that we might either want to include or kind of park. They're also suggesting, in order to get an approval from the Charity Commission, that we should upload a document setting out the changes to the original application to assist the Charity Commission. But we also do need to decide on a clearer definition of the area of Sandwich, whether that is the area, the voting area where our residents live, or whether it encompasses other things. I don't know whether the technology college, for instance, falls within the area, but we do need to decide on that. The third decision is, do we want to appoint Kent Community Foundation to manage this, or do we want to explore what do we do with those? Do we want to explore what their service is further and bring that back? We could engage locality to help us assist with the CIO document and the grant award process, to get somebody else to take a fresh pair of eyes. Councillor Ungerson mentioned the fact that KCF have a grant award process. We've only got what we've been using on the Tollbridge Fund. So, you know, to get kind of the best practices in that. Or do we decide on a combination of any of the above?
So I prefer that we don't then go on to the other two, that we should focus on this. Or else when we go back to start again, we may have to go through them again, just to remind. So would you mind leading us through these, because I think these are sequential in terms of the component parts of the decision.
Okay, so in respect of the interim grant thing, because this I think is urgent now, I know there are groups in Sandwich that are desperate to get some of these funds. So we do need to prepare an interim grant. Now, is that something that you're happy for either the management committee to progress, or would it be better to involve somebody like locality who are independent to assist us in that process? Because what we would like, what I'm suggesting is that if we can move forward with this quickly over the next couple of weeks, hopefully by the mid-August or the end of August, we're able to issue out a process that groups can apply to, and applications could be considered in the September meeting.
So my personal view, and I'll take some comments on that, I really don't think we can sensibly develop a process and go out to residents within a matter of a couple of weeks. We need time to do this properly. That's my personal view, and others agree with me or disagree. I'm happy to take comments on that. Councillor Murray.
Yeah, thank you. I completely agree with what you're saying, Mr. Mayor. It's too short notice. I have some concerns regarding this and the KCF and stuff, regarding CIOs for groups, especially some of the events that will run in the town. They're not CIC or CIOs. They are community-based run events by volunteers. They have bank accounts. So that needs to be looked at as well. I have some recommendations if people are willing to allow it. So I personally think for the September meeting for the Maddox stuff, as we get together, we sort out criteria, look closely at the Tollbridge and how their criteria and how they do their application processes, and then put it out there for the next meeting. Because after the August bank holiday, there's no major things going on in town except for Halloween or Easter, for Christmas, sorry. So my attitude would be just to take our time to look at it more closely. I have a recommendation. I'd like to make a proposal. So I propose for the first one.
Before we make any proposals, can we just remember that what we've got is here some very complicated
interlaying.
And I don't want to jump ahead in terms of proposals that undermine the steps we need to go through, and that's what I was trying to get across. So the first step in the report is, do we continue to employ levics to establish the CIO? That is a critical decision because it then falls onto other things. So I personally would propose, and it might fail, but we do not continue to use levics to establish the CIO. Because from what I've heard from you, from another solicitors, that actually we are probably going to fail again. So I would want to propose, if somebody's happy to second that.
I'll have to second that.
Okay, good vote on that. That's clear.
Yeah.
Okay. just trying to get in, you know, or else we'll get into a right muddle. So the second point, because we do need somebody to help us and do it, do we want to employ girlings to prepare the CIO? If so, can I take that one separately? Do we want to, if we're going to move forward as establishing a CIO, do we want to employ girlings? Is somebody happy to second that?
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Can we vote on that?
So this is to
Yes, to use
We want to use girls.
This has built into it an assumption that we are going to apply to the Charity Commission.
Yeah.
But that,
For now,
but
yes.
the logic of that position is that we then do not go to the Kent Community Foundation. So the two,
we will vote on that, Councillor Anderson. The issue is that we can do some parallel running for now because we haven't submitted the form. The issue is if we just go off in the direction of the glare of KCF, already people have raised a number of concerns and questions that we need to explore. And we should do that in parallel of girlings doing the work we've already asked you to start for us. That would be my suggestion why we're voting for girlings to take over from Maddox. And you can vote against that, but that would be my proposal.
okay, but it doesn't exclude the possibility
No,
of getting
no, but we'll come to a vote on that.
So it's Councillor Black that seconded that, isn't it? Yeah. So everyone's in support of that. Girlings, yeah.
Then a subset, that we should vote on it separately, to include in the CIO application wording on animal welfare and religious and racial harmony. Is somebody happy to propose that we include those? Councillor Fortescue, anybody happy to second that?
Yes, I'll second that.
Councillor Gray, and if we can vote on that?
Can I ask a question?
After the votes, we've already got to the vote on it.
So Councillor, it's one abstention, two against, two abstentions, two against, two abstentions.
Is the question still relevant?
It's just obviously that those items that we've raised were the reasons we didn't get it through last time. So if we do take those forward, we've got to make sure that we get the right wordings on those, otherwise we're going to fail again.
Flagged up with girlings as a requirement, so it was one of our weak areas in terms of application.
Can I just say, if you go to the report that girlings have provided, in section D, they've suggested revised alternative wording in respect of animal welfare, in respect of religious, promoting religious and racial harmony. And you know, some of the things, the elimination of discrimination on the grounds of race, gender, disability, sexual orientation or religion, advancing education and raising awareness in equality and diversity, promoting activities to foster understanding between people from diverse backgrounds, cultivating a sentiment in favour of equality, diversity, racial and religious harmony. That's the type of wording which, you know, I think is difficult for us to deal with, to be honest. In respect of animals, to relieve the suffering of animals in need of care and attention, and to promote humane behaviour towards animals and to educate the public in matters. So again, I think there are lots of other animal charities and so forth.
Yeah.
You know,
Thank you. So it's in
so
the
I just
report,
wanted to explain.
It's in the report.
Yeah.
We voted on it, so we can move on to the next one. Yes. So the next one is a draft and uploaded document to explain the changes, and I think this is a common sense thing to do. So I'm happy to propose that.
Second.
And that was it, yeah.
And to provide a clearer definition on the geographical area that is called Sandwich. So
Please, Mayor. I've said this all along, and I'll keep saying it. I do feel for this charity, it's the Maddox charity that she lived in Sandwich, she loved Sandwich, she's done a lot for Sandwich. I do feel it should be the electrical area for the district. So it's the Sandwich North and Sandwich South only. I do feel I'm very, very strong against before that.
Councillor Moores?
Detail there, not the district. the district includes Williamsborough and Sandwich Bay. And I know that Georgina...
Sorry,
used to-
parish.
Parish.
Sorry, parish.
Well, I do know that Georgina used to play the organ up at Williamsborough. You may wish to...
But just to
think
clarify,
about
just to
We do know
clarify,
that the church of Williamsborough received 80 of 115.
just to clarify, that at Williamsborough Parish Church, I'm not against them, but they already received a substantial grant from her will to help them regarding their organ. So that's my opinion. The people themselves are open. However, I do
just
feel
clarifying
the
the district.
It should be in a parish area.
Councillor Wiles.
The will benefits Sandwich Town Council, so it should be the parish of Sandwich Town Council, the geographical parish.
So I'm happy to propose that it is the parish,
Second parish.
Sandwich Town Council, seconded by Councillor Black, and the vote. Three
abstentions.
Right, so this is where it now gets a bit more complicated, so this is to
So, could I just raise an issue about what we've just discussed, because clearly the advice from Girlings is that Levick's have provided duff advice effectively. They haven't taken account of Charity Commission
Comments.
policies and so on. So are we going to seek a refund from Levick's or not pay them any more money because
well, we aren't due to pay them all money, are
So it was agreed they would draft something for £350.
we? If we use them.
Well, they've done the work obviously, but it hasn't been successful, so I can certainly get that with them.
So we'll investigate that, but if we made a commitment, we wouldn't want to make a commitment. So moving on. Number 3, to appoint KCF to manage the investment grant awarding process and compliance. What I would like to propose is that we defer this to the Maddox Committee, giving time to then consider the questions that have been raised here this evening. But the question is who's going to investigate and get those answers for that committee meeting in September.
Well, I'm happy to take a lead on that, and I'm happy to receive comments from councillors outside of management. Thank you very much. But I also feel that we should be asking them for a better offer, an improved offer.
Yes. Okay, so I would like to propose that Council Green is empowered to do that and to be able to report into the MCMC in September. Is somebody happy to second that?
Second that.
Sorry, are we, is this including seeking a better
Yes.
settlement?
Yes.
That's it.
That's
Okay.
empowering Council Green to have those discussions.
Thank you. That's
Yes.
fine.
We should only be one person doing it in any case.
Yeah.
Councillor Morehouse has seconded. And for the vote.
So, 2 against. Yeah. Okay,
And
thank you.
number 4 is to engage locality to assist with the CIO and grant awarding process at a cost of £600 a day. Or do we have any estimate how many days they would need to do that?
I would have thought it would have done it in a couple of days, and I think it would be very useful to get them to do that. And whilst I heard the comment about the kind of the time it would take, I don't think it would take too long to actually get a grant application form together, to finalise our grant giving policy, and to get some criteria together and bring that to the September meeting. That could be done in a few weeks' time, instead of waiting till September to discuss it, to bring forward an Aunt Sally to discuss, so that it could be issued quickly thereafter.
So I would accept that we should be working to get it to the September meeting. Again, there's a question about who would engage with locality on that and produce.
Yeah, I'm quite happy to
Yeah,
do that.
I'm happy to support you in terms of doing that. If everybody else is, I'm happy to propose that Councillor Green does that.
I'll second it.
Councillor Black, vote on that. And then we don't need to vote on a combination of any of the above because we've done that. Okay. Do you want to take the other 2 so I can have a rest now?
Well, we've kind of talked about the next one already in terms of the interim grant award process. So that, just to reiterate, we're going to get the application forms and the design criteria and the policy together for the beginning of September, and hopefully have a meeting the first few days of September before I go off on a well-deserved holiday, and that then could start the ball rolling for applications to come in thereafter. So I think we're all in agreement, and I'm going to engage with localities so that we encompass best practice within that process, and we can certainly review the application process that can be used by other organisations.
So I think, Councillor Green, in terms of this recommendation, it is broad enough in terms of not tying us down to doing it in weeks. It's giving us a 3-month window, so that the ambition is to do it much quicker. So I think we should support this as written, and then that gives the capacity to do it much quicker.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm happy to propose as written. Somebody have to second?
Can I amend that, please, Mr. Mayor? Just quickly, so can we, for the meeting that we have in September, can we look closely at the Toddlers Fund application as well, see if we can bring some of that in to make it a bit more easy for us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I would hope it might be done as part of the process of getting to the September meeting.
Well, that's exactly right. The paper should be published beforehand, and we can.
Okay. So I'm happy to propose. Somebody have a second?
Sorry, who's second?
That's more.
Okay, and the final one?
And the final one is that members will remember that at a previous meeting, we received a statement from Williamson and Barnes, the executor to Georgina's will, who were very close to finalising the account, and we had to sign off. We authorised the town clerk to sign off. Whilst Williamson and Barnes haven't finished, they are still retaining some £75,000 but the bulk of the monies have now been paid, and they have been received by the council. So the council has received £540,053.21, and in this paper it suggests that we should send 540,000 to the investment manager. But as I say, the investment manager, the total amount of monies within the portfolio and this money above and what's cash in hand comes to, according to my calculation, £3,120,000. So at the moment the town council was holding about £40,000, but we've obviously incurred some costs, and we're going to incur costs with buildings now and so forth, so that's going to be deleted to about £30,000. So I would suggest that we hold on to at least 40,000 more. That would give us £70,000 cash in hand to be able to make grant awards as soon as the process is completed. So I would ask people I would propose that we only transfer £500,000 to Harris Allday.
I'm happy to second that.
Yeah. The vote on that? Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Moving on to agenda item 9.
You did again, but you said it was unanimous anyway. So.
That's all right. Lucky you. Lucky you. Okay, agenda item 9. So I'm going to introduce this report. So the King's visit to Walmer on the 10th of July was a great occasion for the Confederation of the Cinque Ports and Sandwich itself. The town was represented by the Mayor and Mayoress, the town clerk, and 2 community representatives of Walmer. In selecting where the King would visit, Sandwich was one of the 2 locations that was considered along with Deal. This report in front of you provides an explanation from the Lord Warden of the Cinque Ports regarding the decision-making process which led to Deal being selected instead of Sandwich. This addresses comments made by Councillor Borkart on Facebook, which have overshadowed this event and have impacted the reputation of the Mayor, Sandwich Town Council and others. The 3 screenshots which have been included in the report are a sample of around a dozen similar comments made, the majority of which refer to the Mayor rather than a named person. As members know, Councillor Carter is pursuing several avenues regarding this matter, and that he has reported me, as Mayor, to the police, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Information Commissioner's Office and the Town Council itself. I have also subsequently been reported to the DDC Monitoring Officer. The explanation provided by the Lord Warden is a positive statement about the bid made by Sandwich to host the King, but explains the practical aspects that led to deal being preferred. Therefore, I am only asking members to note the explanation provided by the Lord Warden so that it can be put on record and attached to the minutes of this meeting. Councillor Carter.
Thank you very much. And I will maintain a tradition by standing as we're supposed to do here. This King's visit is really a point of order. We shouldn't be discussing it. First of all, it's a matter of confidential personal information between the Lord Warden, the Mayor and the Mayor-elect.
Right, so Councillor Carter, I'll ask you, I am chair here, I'm not allowing this to continue, this is not a point of order. Point of orders are about the procedure of this meeting and this report. I have had no engagement with the Lord Warden directly about this visit. So unless you stop going down that line of talk, then you need to sit down.
You did. You were there on the 19th of May. When they turned up.
Councillor Carter.
Can I have my say? You've had your say.
You've called a point of order.
This is
called a point of order. I am dismissing that. Councillor Carter.
Point of order. This shouldn't have been brought to this council because it is a confidential matter. That confidential matter, hand on heart, I explained. So the Lord Warden.
Councillor Carter, please sit down.
No,
this is not a point of order. This is not a confidential matter.
Okay, I won't put a point of order. Yes, I need to have my say.
No.
I need to address this.
You can only address the report.
I'm addressing the report.
Talk about things that you have reported me to in terms of the police, DDC, the Director of Public Prosecutions. Please sit down. I'd like to propose
it
that
relates to the office of the Lord Warden and indirectly His Majesty the King.
You have been
this is a democratic chamber. This is a democratic chamber.
Yes.
Who in this chamber thinks that I should be allowed to speak to the item from democracy? What are you doing? You're having a dictatorship
You're having a go at me personally. That is not acceptable under the standing orders.
That is no.
Okay.
It is a democracy. We have always been allowed to reply to items. We are always allowed to reply to items.
Sorry, I'm going to suspend the meeting now for 5 minutes. Meeting suspended.
Okay, well I'll just start again when you come back, because this is a